Which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up will be item 3, roll call.
Can you hear me? Yep. All right. Councilmember Busby,
Present.
Councilmember Pride. Here. Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Mayor Hudson.
Present. Got us all thrown off.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Mine's incorrect. Sorry. And Councilmember Hanson.
Here.
Right.
Perfect. Item 4, changes to agenda.
The only change that we have tonight's agenda is the public hearing, which is item number 7A, summary abatement of 335 North Shasta Street. That has been continued to the January 28th council meeting.
Okay. All right. Next up is item 5A, which is a presentation on the Willows PD feasibility study. Recommended action is receive the presentation from the city law enforcement consultant and provide feedback and staff direction. Marty, do you have anything you want to start off?
Yes, let me just briefly introduce Brian Uller, our consultant on this. Brian works with the Municipal Resource Group. MRG is a very well-known municipal group that works on a lot of different, brings a lot of different consulting to local government. And tonight he will be presenting on the feasibility or cost estimate for reestablishing the Willows PD. Brian is a retired police chief himself from South Lake Tahoe, and most recently he was the interim police chief in Carmel. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Honorable Mayor Hudson, Vice Mayor Thomas, and Council, thank you very much for visiting today. The first slide, please.
Oh, right. Okay.
At the request of City Council, MRG was hired to help evaluate the feasibility of establishing or reestablishing a Willows Police Department. While the county's provided services since 2017, cost increases as well as service and staffing concerns have led to the previous council's interest in making a change. As part of this process, you will see in the upcoming presentation, we look at crime trends, per capita comparisons, existing and historical staffing levels, along with budget realities. Next slide, please. To begin the project, we examined the budgets and staffing levels of all Northern California cities with a population between 5,000 and 9,000. As shown here, of all such cities, Willows is the only department without its own police department. In the highlighted section, from both a population and budget size perspective, Willows is closest to Colusa. Next slide, please. As mentioned, a review of crime data was also undertaken. Here we can see both violent and property crime data from all the comparison cities. The column on the right shows the crime index, which is basically a rating of safety levels for the given community. The way to look at this is the higher the number, the safer or better for the various cities. The two closest comparison cities are Colusa and Orland, both of which are safer than Willows with an index of 29 versus Willows rating of 17. Next slide, please. So to begin with, we looked at salary data from all of the comparison jurisdictions. We looked at the posted top step for each position within all the comparison cities, and the data is listed on this chart. The average data, the averages are listed at the bottom, and if you scroll up just a little bit, you'll see the 80th percentile, which we'll talk more about in the Yeah, thumb wheel yourself down a little bit. There you go. So the reason we calculated the 80th percentile, you can recall from your staff report, there was an extensive discussion on attracting appropriate number of applicants to your positions. So the idea of paying at the middle would actually not really help you in terms of attracting or creating new positions or getting lateral transfers to come in. So we started with a target of about 80th or the 80th percentile, and you'll see all the salary calculations deeper into the presentation are based on this. Next slide, please. Interesting to note, if you look at that 80th percentile on the farthest right bottom corner, you'll see the officer rate at $7,023 per month. That is just a little bit higher than the GCSO's frontline deputies' top salary of about $6,600 per month. So we're pretty close. So here we see proposed staffing levels to match those in Colusa. And this is a snapshot in time. I contacted the various agencies and looked at the budgets from each of those agencies in the fall of 2024. And it was during that time frame that we show that the data on the earlier slide that it showed how many positions were at each agency. So Colusa was at 9 at that point in time. And here we show a potential or a possible future Willows Police Department with 9 sworn staff members. That would be a chief, 2 sergeants, 6 officers, and 1 analyst. And within this slide, you can also see that the total cost for all the salary to include an increase in 2026 of 5%, which is just to account for inflation. The total salary cost with benefits at $1.51 million per year. Councilmember Hansen, who as part of the subcommittee expressed concern about this, as explained, and he explained later on or during a previous meeting that the prior Willows Police Department had 10 people and that was even tight. So there's certainly a question as to whether or not 9 or 10 is appropriate. And I think most recently the Sheriff's Department presented some concerns about 9 versus 10 people. So that's something to consider in terms of future development of a police department. Now, the one thing that I'd like to mention on that topic is that all of the material you'll see here is based on the smallest possible department at 9. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides really focus on one-time costs. These are the costs that are required to develop and deploy a police department. This chart represents the impact on your current budget should you decide to move forward with establishing a Willows Police Department. As you can see, the total impact for this year is not too bad at $90,000. And basically, that's early planning process. The early planning process to include things like evaluating the building, just developing scope of service for some sort of a building renovation, IT deployment additions, and developing a relationship with an executive search firm to find a future police chief. Next slide, please. So in addition to the impacts from the current budget year, this slide depicts what will happen. And I apologize to the audience. I don't know if you're broadcasting online or not, but the slide is obviously got a long listing of material, and you could refer to the staff report for details if you wanted to look at individual line items. But this is the largest one-time budget impacts would occur during the 2025-2026 budget year. In short, Willows would need to start paying people in the months before the department actually starts providing services. Further, providing for building improvements and buying vehicles and equipment would represent the majority of one-time costs. Well, there's a lot of information squeezed in on this chart. You can see that it represents the basic infrastructure of a police department. Again, it includes partial year salaries, buildings, vehicles, equipment, but it totals $1.149 million one-time costs in your upcoming budget year. Next slide, please. So there are some options for consideration. I don't know if you could squeeze it up a little bit. There's just, yeah, there you go. For example, the options include that if the council decides to sweeten the pot to potential applicants and attract applicants, you might offer things like take-home vehicles or sign-on bonus programs, which are very common in California now. And if you do that, one-time costs go up. So here we represent a high-cost option, which would include those kinds of things, to include also technology improvements like body-worn cameras or tasers. Those that would bring, if you opted for a high-cost model, you're looking at 1.8 million. The middle-of-the-road model is 1.14. And then if you go to a low-cost option, and that's basically where you deploy used vehicles instead of new vehicles, and savings by deferring any building remodeling costs, ultimately you could save a lot of one-time costs and get it down probably just under $1 million. Next slide, please. As part of our review, consideration was given to the laws associated with establishing a police facility in California. In short, police stations are considered critical infrastructure or essential services buildings or facilities. Your staff report reflects 8 enumerated items, which gives you the highlights of these legal requirements. Because the target timeframe of starting a police department is July 1 of 2026, there wouldn't be time in order to develop and design and construct a facility that would meet these requirements. That said, it would be necessary to establish a temporary police facility. And since the previous police department in Willows used this particular area of City Hall, it occupied, it's about 1,300 square feet. It previously served as a police facility up until 2017. We would propose utilizing the same exact space for temporary facility. And to reflect its temporary nature, we would propose that you make no changes to the exterior dimensions of the building. This particular slide shows the current floor plan and a proposed or possible floor plan in the future for how that facility would look. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're getting into the section which explains your ongoing year-to-year budget. As previously mentioned, the total cost for salary and benefits is $1.58 million per year. Here you see a breakdown of each benefit category and the percentages. And this was derived from your current benefits that are paid to your fire department. So, for example, CalPERS retirement is currently funded at 16.08%. So we took the annual salary subtotal and then added each of these various categories: health insurance, FICA, Medicare, holiday pay, et cetera. And those individual line items are represented there to arrive at the 1.58 million per year for your salary and benefits for 9 people, or 9 sworn and 1 analyst, I should say. Next slide, please. This slide represents the ongoing costs for Willows PD's maintenance and materials and services. This includes things like fuel, dispatch services, legal contracted services, records management system, risk pool insurance, and work comp insurance. All of these services total $533,000 per year. And when added to the salary and benefits, it represents a total budget for the upcoming or the budget year that you would actually start service is at 2.114 million per year. Next slide. So one of the major questions that undoubtedly the council has to concern themselves with is what are the ongoing costs and how does it relate to what the county contracts your costs for and the difference between those two. And here you see for 10 years, you see what is the cumulative difference or savings on a per year basis. On the highlighted section of this slide, you see the WPD costing 2.114 million per year. And just above that, you see the GCSO contract, which is the upcoming contracted costs at 2.355 million per year. So you have a difference of just short of $250,000 or savings over the contracted arrangement with the sheriff's department of about 240,000. By going through year to year, you can see that if you opted for the high cost one-time costs at 1.8 or so million per year, the cumulative difference in terms of the savings on a year-over-year basis would get you to about 2032 when your original 1.8 million one-time costs are recovered in a cost savings or cost difference there. Next slide, please. Here you can see the gap between running your own police department and contracting with the sheriffs is very small. In short, long-term financial discipline would be needed to ensure year-to-year cost savings if the goal is to eventually recover one-time costs. If Willows decided to deploy 10 sworn people instead of 9, the cost difference would be negligible. Next slide. If the objective is just to focus on services, then the key question for the council as it relates to service levels, the top part of this slide shows the commitment made by GCSO as reflected in the current contract, and the bottom section shows a possible duty schedule for Willows PD. And I think we're in agreement that this represents a really tight duty schedule. As I mentioned, Councilmember Hansen had previously expressed some concern because the department used to function with 10 instead of 9. And 9 would be tight. There's no question about it. And there would be a question as to whether or not, I think it's doable, but I think it would be tight. And if the council wants to create a little bit of fluff in there, then it erases what is the difference between the cost of doing it with the sheriff or doing it yourself. So then the question becomes, do you prefer to do it yourself because you can have added local control? You see police cars that are marked with Willows Police Department. You have personnel that are wearing Willows Police Department uniforms and serving the public here. So it becomes a service question as you look forward to the future. Next slide, please. Before we move on to this one, I would like to just make mention that many small agencies in California operate this way, where they schedule tightly, and there is many hours where there's solo patrol, and they rely on mutual aid agreements and local nearby jurisdictions to provide mutual aid. This is true as it relates to both Colusa and Orland. Talked to both the chiefs in both those agencies, and they say that they do oftentimes run with a single patrol officer working at a time. So the next 3 slides relate to what would be an implementation timeline. And like the previous slide, I apologize, the size of the text is not really conducive to a public presentation, but you get a sense of the many kinds of things that are required to accomplish in order to deploy a police department. On the right side of the slide is the timeline for completing each of these various tasks. And each of the green diamonds represents milestones that where the council would meet and make decisions about what it is that the city is doing as it relates to the project. In order to meet the original target date of starting a Willows Police Department operationally on July 1st, 2026, the work would need to start right away. This said, we've organized this implementation plan for your consideration. The first phase, the one that's showing now on the screen, starts with the council agreeing to move forward with establishing a police department and concludes with the council passing next year's budget, which includes all of the one-time costs we've previously discussed. Next slide, please. Phase 2 starts once the budget is passed for the next budget year. Here, the city engages in many preparatory activities such as modifying the building, making technology arrangements, starting the hiring process for all personnel, initiating the purchase of all the equipment and vehicles. This second phase concludes with the hiring of the police chief at the end of this calendar year. Next slide, please. As described in your staff report, phase 3 of the implementation plan is primarily the things the new chief would undertake before operations actually begin. This includes things like hiring personnel, ensuring office space is functional, training and equipping the newly hired staff, and engaging with the community. This phase would conclude with the mayor or city clerk swearing in the department and could include an open house for the community to see the police facility and meet newly hired personnel. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide, I should say. So here are 3 major issues and discussion topics for the council. First, paying all the one-time costs while also paying the county for the ongoing services is an issue. I've familiarized myself with the budget here in Willows, and it's not like you have multiple millions of dollars hanging around where you could just go expend all these one-time costs and continue paying for the services from the sheriff's department. So that's an issue. Second, developing a long-term plan for your permanent police facility. Nothing in here talks about the costs associated with that. So we did include $395,000 for a temporary facility, but your long-range plans would need to include something to satisfy the requirements in the law. It could take many years to accomplish, but it would be something for your thoughtful discussion and consideration. And lastly, giving consideration to the slim margin between your current costs for contracted services and the projected costs for a future Willows PD may negate the need to consider moving forward at all. So I'll be available to answer any questions you might have. I don't know, should I sit back down and do discussion or public comment? Or?
I think you probably should stay there in case there's questions by the council.
All right.
No, thank you for the presentation. That was very insightful. Council members, any questions? Rick, you want to start us off?
I can do that. I didn't see a cost for animal control in here.
Oh, those services would have to be continuing, just like I think animal control, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, but animal control is also done for Orland as a separate item. So you'd have to continue your arrangements for animal control. And you'd also have to continue your arrangements for dispatch services from the sheriff's department. So you'd be modeling much like Orland does now for those other services that would still be a part of the ongoing operations.
Well, I've been over this quite some time and being on the safety committee. So I'm pretty familiar with these numbers and what you've presented. The thing that worries me is with the number of officers that is proposed, there's no room for a vacation. There's no room for sickness. There's no room for illness, injury.
Well, there is a little bit of room. If you'll notice, there's some fine print on the proposed schedule. It talks about Officer 3 and Officer 6. Both of those officers, their entire schedule overlaps with other officers. But you're correct that if those if someone was to take vacation, Officer 3 or Officer 6 would then have to fill in and change their hours of assignment to cover that vacancy or that illness or that injury. Again, very tight scheduling arrangement. And it could mean that the police chief or the sergeants have to pick up extra field duties. I don't think that's uncommon in this area. I know I've heard tale of the sheriff himself being out there doing traffic enforcement.
And lastly, so your modeling would show that there is one officer on duty Monday through Thursday from the hours of midnight to 7 a.m. Did I analyze that correctly?
Well, let me look at the chart real quick and I can tell you. Okay, so Thursday, what was your question about Thursday?
Well, I just the way I read this is Monday through Thursday from the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Oh, from midnight to 7 a.m. There's only one officer on duty.
Yes, that's correct, because the sergeant gets off of duty at midnight. So the sergeant would go home at that point, and then the officer who is working that evening shift, the period of time that we have two officers working is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's on the assumption that those would be busier days. People would be, out drinking or doing something on the weekends.
Misbehaving?
Yes, something like that. I don't think they do that in Willis, though, do they?
No, we just don't get caught.
Okay. But you're right, that there is, it would be solo officer from those hours,
I will pause here and let the rest of my council members
of course.
ask their question.
Councilmember Pride?
One on the facility. So if we started out with a temporary facility and there's requirements, is there a time factor that you would have to be in compliance? I mean, how long could we potentially live
I'm
in
not,
temporary?
yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that question. I think that would be more of a question you'd pose to your legal counsel.
Perfect.
My suspicion or my gut tells me that as long as you're making some effort and some progress moving towards what would be that goal, I think that's the way California has typically handled these kind of grace periods in the past.
Okay.
But that would be Brian Euler guess, not a lawyer.
And then in regard to vehicles, I didn't see any reference to looking into leasing vehicles as an option. Was that looked at but not put into our staff report because it's not a good option?
Well, most leasing arrangements are probably very similar to purchasing outright. You can purchase them over time and run a lease program. But I did not consider that only because we wanted to separate out all your one-time costs. And then, but that is an option.
Okay. And then lastly, in the overtime category, there was money budgeted. Is that a way to sort of offset Councilmember Thomas's questions in regards to it being a fairly tight schedule? So if someone's, sick or on vacation, that's where the budget comes in for the overtime.
That built-in overtime of 70,000 was added in because the actual duty schedule is 3 on, 4 off, and then 4 on, 3 off for 12-hour shifts. That means during an 80-hour or 2-week work cycle, they would be working 84 hours.
Okay.
So it's built in a 4-hour overtime on top of what would be base salary.
Okay.
There might be some ways to administratively handle that if it was slow and the sergeant says, hey, you can take some time off and manage that down in that way. But that would depend on, future arrangements with the officers and details as to whether or not he needed the coverage or not during that particular time of day or night.
So that's basically just making the 9 sworn officers.
That's
work.
right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll pass for now also, Mayor.
Councilmember Busby?
I'm not seeing anything in here and I don't know if size is part of it, but for continual training, academy, any kind of onboarding or anything like that, those kind of costs for new officers.
Right. presumption is that you would only be hiring laterals to start off, meaning people that are pre-trained and already serving in a police officer position. Starting brand new officers, as in sponsoring them to send them to an academy and paying them as a cadet and then bringing them on board implies that you have staff that could receive them after they've completed the academy and then train them for 6 months in the field as a field training officer arrangement. Down the road, that would be a possibility. But initially, you'd have to start up with lateral pre-train because you just don't have people there or the time necessary to start with brand new cadets out of an academy.
Next would be the optional one-time costs. So I think just having is there some sort of something that we can look at to say, okay, this is what's the level of service being provided by GCSO, and hey, if we want an apples to apples comparison, it costs this, or hey, we can do less for less at this, or if we want to roll this out at best of the best kind of
Right.
thing.
The one-time costs discussion in the report basically just relates to the sort of the hardware and the equipment and the hard costs associated with operating a police agency. There are probably valid discussions to have, and so you're comparing with the sheriff's department in terms of things like extra pays. Some agencies include things like bilingual pay, education pay, qualifications with post and certain certifications, and those extra pays do add up. For the sake of apples and apples discussions and just trying to figure it all out, we just operated from the position of the top base pay.
I think that's all I have for right now.
Councilmember Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brian, for an excellent report and for your presentation this evening, which is a much simplified version of your report, which has all this other information that the council members have seen. And excellent job overall. You know what you're talking about, obviously.
Thank you.
This is accurate information. And as you mentioned, the main disagreement I have with your presentation proposal is using an Eclusa PD model. Nothing wrong with the Eclusa Police Department, but due to their location, it's a little unusual where they're at. So their activity is lower, and they can actually, or currently they're getting by with
Smaller
small number of personnel.
I think you've pointed out that they're not even on the I-5 corridor, and
No.
it represents a workload that is kind of a unfair comparison.
Yeah, exactly. Similar size communities, but every community, as we know, has its little oddities and differences and whatnot, known style, basically, if you will.
Yes, sir.
But as you know, as we all know, but the Eclusa being 9 miles off the freeway, pretty much. I don't want to say the sidewalks roll up at nighttime because any law enforcement officer knows that's not the case, but it's a different activity level there. And Eclusa PD is functioning with 9 personnel, which they've functioned at, as far as I know, for decades now. But I think my preference would be more along the lines of the Williams Police Department model. We're slightly larger population, less than 1,000 more, probably about 700 or 800 more higher population, but similar, basically almost sister cities, basically. Well, and I would allude that the call volume activity level would be pretty much about, pretty close to that. And they're running with 12, Williams, 11 personnel, 11 personnel.
Yep.
Orland's running with 13. I mean, it'd be nice to have 12, 10. I wouldn't recommend 9 at all. I know Under Sheriff Travis Goodwin. Thank you, Travis, for your email that you supplied yesterday. I read that. It's accurate information. I agree. Absolutely agree with all of your comments. And it alluded to, and our council members have seen that. I hope you've all seen it. Exactly. Exactly. It's all about officer safety, shift coverage, as we know here, officer safety, shift coverage, and public safety. Yeah. And I just disagree with. I know we're dealing with limited amounts of funds, but what kind of a law enforcement agency do you want? What kind of safety public safety do you want to provide for your citizens, and also officer safety, concerns as well.
Absolutely.
And as you've alluded in our past discussions in your report, in California, nationwide, but as we know in California, I mean, almost every agency I know, the vast majority of agencies are down personnel. It's
Yeah.
difficult hiring, recruiting, as we know. It's been difficult for years. It's only gotten worse. But no, there's a lot of information here to chew on. I agree with temporary police department facilities here within this building. When this building was originally laid out in 1969, why they put the police department in the back of the building where nobody knew it was, it doesn't make any sense, but it was what it was. But for temporary police facilities, I think I'd recommend that, if we move forward with this, and hopefully we will, as reestablishing a police department, to at least have our temporary facilities here. We can make it work for the time being. Willows PD, the former Willows PD, was tight for years in that cramped quarters. You say 1,300 square feet is ridiculous. There was a little. Did you include the evidence room coverage across the hallway there too?
I did not.
Okay, there's a little.
On the chart of the floor plan.
Yeah, there's a little bit of room there, and there is some vacant space there where the old former recreation offices were. Not much, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I did include that in the floor plan. There is a small evidence room, which would be sitting right next to the chief's office. So by narrowing the hallway a little bit
okay. Yeah.
and expanding that area that's right next to the hallway, there is an evidence processing area depicted on there.
I mean, it would work temporarily,
Mhm.
but it would be a cost savings. And Lori, to your answers, your questions about leasing, sure, there are different options out there for leasing. I mean, there are some good leasing options, but I definitely stay away from buying used cars. We've tried that in years past. The sheriff's office rebuilding cars, not purchasing used cars, but rebuilding worn out patrol cars.
Mhm.
They're worn out.
They're selling them for a reason.
Right. Yeah. Let them. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but
Responding to your observation about Calusa, I did speak with the chief in Calusa, and he explained that he's lucky enough to have a relationship with Williams, and that
Mhm.
many of the backups are going across from Williams and back to
Sure,
Calusa, and vice
absolutely.
versa. So that arrangement would be much more difficult to administer.
sure. Yeah. It's 9 miles.
Yeah.
It's 9 miles straight on Highway 20. Easy, quick shot.
They're very similarly situated, so they can
Right.
back each other up.
And they're running, the sheriff's office here, generally running most shifts, a sergeant and 3 beat deputies in the county. And of course, the sheriff's office, as you know, is just, right in the city of Colusa as well.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. But Colusa is a unique community. It's a nice town. Yeah, I like Colusa, but they're unique just where they're located,
Mhm.
and they can get by with this.
Mhm.
It works for them. But, like I say, every community has its own little idiosyncrasies and challenges, but those are my comments, with the exception of needing a couple of more patrol bodies. I do, like I said, the Williams PD model.
Mhm.
With the exception of that, you've nailed it, Brian. It's been a pleasure. And Rick and I have, and Marty, the city manager, Marty Brown, we've met several times, and it's been a pleasure working with you. You're a pro, you know what you're talking about. And I just want to, let my colleagues and the public know that Brian's got this nailed down, his report. This is all, this is all accurate information. And the realities are, when we contracted with the sheriff's office in 2017, we didn't do it for cost savings.
Mhm.
There was minimal cost savings, a few tens of thousands of dollars. I want to say $60,000 or $80,000 cost saving. It was recruitment, being able to provide a well-functioning, safe police department, and we weren't able to do that. It was extremely, extremely difficult, and got worse. And with a small agency of 10 people, and then when you have 2 or 3 injuries on top of that, and then throw a vacancy on top of that, it was a nightmare. So we were going back in the mid '80s when, being a former Willows PD officer, when I was at the sheriff's office during those decades in there, I, myself and 2 other former PD officers worked on our days off at time and a half, supplying coverage for Willows PD. That was in the mid '80s. I did that for almost 2 years of shift coverage. because they had 3 officers out on long-term disability injury who ended up retiring. And, but Willows couldn't safely provide, the police department was burning the officers out. It's dangerous. It's not safe. And trying to run a 24/7 operation with 6 bodies wasn't working.
Mhm.
And it went on and on and on in several years of that. So that's why, and I've been posed a question before, and the sheriff asked me the same question. And for historical references, that's why we contracted at the time with the sheriff's office for, to provide effective, efficient public safety service for our citizens and our personnel. And at that time, all of the deputies or all of the Willows PD officers that were qualified transferred over to the sheriff's office after the backgrounds. There were only 2 officers, I believe, who did not. One of them due to a career-ending injury, and another officer did not for other reasons. But anyway, so that's all I have to say on that. So I just wanted to, just for a little bit of historical reference there. So thank you, Brian, for your excellent work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions?
Well, I have a couple additions. The biggest elephant in this room is how we're going to pay for it. We're talking about adding $3.5 to $5 million in overhead over the next 3 to 4 years. So if we extended this plan out, would you believe a 5% upcharge per year would be an appropriate estimate, or should it be more like 7?
I'm not a financial analyst, but I can tell you that I think the economy is improving and the inflation rates are coming down. So I don't think that 5% is out of the realm of what would be a professional financial person's advice on that. But I think that's typical of what agencies and government plan for. Perhaps your city manager would know more about what others might use in terms of planning.
Oh, we'll ask her.
And I'll research it and find out.
The last one, and that's tying into what Gary, you just said, if we disbanded in 2017 because of injury and coverage issues, how
Yes.
do we solve that problem today so we don't have that same problem tomorrow? So we have some big hills to climb here, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it.
Well, you'll notice that in that staff report, I spent quite a little bit of effort to describe for you the difficulty in attracting applicants.
Right.
And the value in terms of paying at the top end of what would be your competitive range for agencies in and around the area. That's just the sad reality. And, guarding against, future attrition and future vacancies and being able to continue to attract is there's no way around saying other than it's a cost issue, because you're competing in a marketplace for
Right.
what is a limited commodity. And that's what it comes right down to.
And I know our constituents would like us to reestablish a police department, and I think everybody would be happy with that. And I think even our sheriff would be happy with this effort. I don't have an answer for any of these questions today. We're going to have to scratch our head, and unless there's grants, some kind soul out there that just won the lottery, I'm not sure how we're going to do that. Now, I know we could ask our county supervisors for some assistance. I'm not sure that they would say they're not broke as well, but we can always ask if we get to that point. So how we're going to handle this and
I
how we're going
reviewed
to.
the sheriff's budget. He's got a big budget. I'm sure he can absorb.
Well, he's going to give us free service for 2 years so we can do this, right? That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, there's definitely some questions, no doubt, when it comes to the upfront costs of getting everything started. That's really the big hurdle. We do have a sales tax that was passed, but we have no understanding of what that number is actually going to be. We have great estimations, but we don't know necessarily what that number is going to be yet. So that's one of the things. Also, one of my big things is it's not necessarily that. The way I look at it is I'm not looking for necessarily a cost savings. Okay. I'm looking for the public safety aspect of it, right? if Willis PD has their own police department, then that means the sheriffs are able to use their entire staff to respond to county problems, or heaven forbid, a problem in Orland that needs additional personnel, and then the city is still protected, right? The way it is right now is, as a city, we're contracting that, but we're drawing away those extra resources the county could be using, hopefully elsewhere, to protect not just Willows, but the entire county. Because Willows does serve everyone that's in the county as well. One thing I read in there was that Reading is offering a bonus of $40,000 for laterals. What are the other local jurisdictions our size offering for the laterals like that as a bonus?
I'd have to research that independently, but I think it's
Okay.
not uncommon to see 30,000. Perhaps a sheriff or one of the other law enforcement people that work in this region would understand more or know more about the answer to
Okay.
that question. But it's commonplace
Right.
in today's
I knew it's
time.
been something pretty common. I just didn't know if you knew what they were offering elsewhere.
There's some variations too as to how they allot it out. You know, they might have a 30 or 40,000, but whether it's upfront or whether it's parceled out according to time that they have to serve for a while before they get all of it, that kind of thing. And there's
Right.
some deviations from location to location as to how it's administered.
Right. And then another question that I had was, right now you have us listed as 6 patrol officers,
Mhm.
and then you have the $70,000 in overtime.
Mhm.
Are you saying that $70,000 would essentially disappear if we had another patrol officer, or would it require 2 from doing
Yeah.
the study and kind of
Actually,
doing the
if
research?
you added a 7th patrol officer and you went with
Mhm.
10 instead of 5, you would have to just add on what are the costs of that whole officer and the fully burdened rates, all the benefits associated with that. And so,
Because my thought is
Yeah,
you're
I
you're adding
I
a
think-
whole nother officer,
Yeah.
but then you can take away that 70,000 to apply towards that officer.
And I've shared all the spreadsheets and data, the Excel data with your city manager. And I think it would be easy to change a 6 to a 7 and to see what the actual impacts would be from a financial standpoint. If that was the council's desire, is to look at
Okay.
10 instead of 9 and cost it out. It would be, there would be variation, but I think basically it would put you more in sync with what it is in terms of what you're paying for the sheriff's department now.
Right.
My guess tells me you add another officer, you're looking at 180 to 200,000 with all the fully burdened prices and the extra overtime or all the other.
What have you. Okay.
Yep.
Because like I said, my goal here is a public safety. So whether our
course.
upfront costs are earned back or it's just what we have to spend, right? We're creating an additional public safety feature for our town and for our citizens. So that's why I'm, at the same time, I don't want, a 2017 incident coming across
Right.
where we start all this and then not able to
Mhm.
uphold it. So definitely a lot to think about. Really good information. I appreciate your time and the presentation. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Next item is presentation, item 5B, military stand down. And this will be presented by Supervisor Yoder. Yeah.
You too. How are you? Yeah, you were there. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
List, yeah, I can hand them down.
Yes. It was not easy.
Yeah. Just a simple email to you, phone call, and you were more than gracious for helping us. But anyways, thank you very much. I was thinking about, well, should we do it under the 3-minute comments? But like Gary, I talk too much. He and I, we like talking into a mic for some reason. Mr. Busby, how are you? Lori, congratulations on your guys'.
Sorry, thank you. I was reading
Your
the
guys'
Thank you, Jim.
leadership here. Let me give you a little bit background. Last year in August, we, Supervisor Rossman and myself looked at what we can do for our senior population. And we came up with the concept of having a senior resource expo. And so we went to our very talented community action department, our TCAP, all these acronyms, and HHSA and all them. And we posed an idea to them. And so we formed an ad hoc committee, and we took off, and we had almost 1,000 people go through the doors in August for our senior resource. We had 120 vendors. Now, this isn't vendors that are new concept. They were a pop-up vendors. These are vendors that exist and go into the helping our seniors. It's just getting them together in the same room to collaborate and say, okay, this is some of the services we have. So we got them all at the Orland Fairgrounds because we had 90% of of those buildings filled up. My point is we had veteran services there. We signed up 200, just under 200 veterans over the age of 55 that have never been signed up for veteran services before. Now, we have in excess of 1,800 veterans within our county. So we still have a long ways to go. And I'll give you a little bit of insight what we did today at the board, which has never been done in the state of California before, is AB 109 money, as everybody knows what the realignment monies are, and Gary does with AB 109, is we had the CCP, the Corrections Community Partnership, give us a full funded VSO, Veteran Services Officer. We did that today. And we haven't had one since its inception in 1940s that we've had in Glenn County. So now we're going out, we're flying tomorrow, the paperwork for a full-time Veteran Services Officer. So that'll be instrumental in getting the services for our veterans. That's one of the passion things that again, Supervisor Rossman and myself are working day in and day out on. But as we get to the veteran stand down, we looked at it after the Senior Resource Expo, and we said, okay, how can we reach our veterans? How can we reach those other 1,200 or 1,800 veterans, or what do we have within our county, and get them the services that they're entitled to, not the services that they need or whatever. It's an entitlement that they have. It's something that as a county, because we just recently all went into as a Purple Heart County, we all honor our veteran. Well, now we need to put our money where our mouth is. And so that's what we took that approach, and we're like, okay, let's have a veteran stand down. A veteran stand down has the concept of it's at risk or homeless veterans. That's what the stand down is. However, we took it one step further, and we made it from a veteran stand down to also a veteran's appreciation. So what we're doing is we're trying to get every veteran, everybody who's had military experience, their spouses, their children, and everybody that has to do with military. We want them to show up, see the services. We have almost 80 vendors. And we're talking veterans from disabled veteran services to the VA to Calvet, all the services that they have that they can tap into. Even the VJO, which is the Veterans Justice Outreach, then that's talking about our incarcerated veterans, that what services, and based on the crime and based on their incarceration, they have certain entitlements that they have coming for them. So those are the things that we want to make sure that our veterans, as they return back into the civil, into mainstream America, that they don't get left behind. So that's where the advocacy comes in from our VSO and all that. So we're having this stand down. We're calling it stand down, but it's military appreciation also. And we're going to Congressman LaMalfa, his office is putting on the lunch for that. So we'll have lunch. We are going to have helicopters and all kinds of military apparatus there, and to show the support. We do have rucksacks full of equipment and clothing And it doesn't matter the demographics. It doesn't matter if you're the richest veteran in the county or you're the poorest veteran. And we want you there, and we have supplies that if you want them, they're there. We've traveled up and down the state through the different stand downs, Shasta County, Butte, they just had theirs. And we are looking forward to ours. We went on the news yesterday to promote it. And so we're trying to get the word out as much as we can to get all the veterans and the military personnel that can show up, even like I said, their spouses, because some of the veterans may not have made it back. So their spouses, their children, and whatnot. And so that's why we're trying to reach out to make sure that they get those services. We're having a lot of services come over from the VA over in Butte County and all that stuff. So that's something that we're really passionate about, trying to get these things down. And I gave you the flyer, the first flyer, the second flyer kind of shows our mission statement, what we're doing. And I would give you another one that showed all of our services, but it's like 3 pages long, and it was almost like that small little print that you saw on the screen, but it's there. So I encourage any of you, especially being local legislators, is that you guys show up, look at, see what we got going on, see just to see it for yourself, the camaraderie that's going to be there, and the services that are available to our veterans, because we all know it better. We all know, but and I'm not sure if you, I'm in the military, I'm not sure. I know your brother. And, but everybody knows a veteran that may or may not need assistance, one way or another. Might not be financial, might not be health, it may not be, but maybe mental. Maybe, they need some mental outreach and stuff. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And that will be January 24th. It is a one-day event, 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'll be serving lunch. We'll be serving a latter part of the day, kind of a lunch dinner type thing. So we're going to be doing that. And we'll have, I think, Assemblyman Gallagher will be there. I know he'll be giving a speech. And we have the VFWs there. We'll have the fire departments there. And it should be a very well-rounded event. And I just hope you guys maybe can come and see what we got. And, we can always expand on it next year. So anyways, any questions? If you do, I can answer anything you want. If not, I do appreciate you guys listening to me. And I appreciate Marty for giving me the time. So,
Thank you, Jim.
Perfect.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Busby, you guys got any questions?
I look forward to going.
Councilmember Hanson,
No, thank you.
Lori, Vice Mayor Thomas?
Nope.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Supervisor Yoder, for coming and giving us the presentation. I do have one question for you. It says some DME. What is DME? That's my only question. It was just curious. That's what I figured.
You know what? I'm gonna research and get back to you.
Okay.
I got that one. There's so many acronyms and on it and stuff, and I don't even know, where did you see DME?
Oh, it's in the list of events we'll be offering free military gear, meals, haircuts, some DME, food
Second line,
commodities,
bottom of the-
raffles, and other free items. Yeah, it's in the blue section.
Yeah, I would,
Yeah.
aha. Thank you, Lauren.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway,
Perfect.
we'd be doing, like I said,
Awesome.
haircuts. If you just want a haircut, I mean, not yourself, but if anybody wants a haircut, they're given, we'll have 2 booths fit there for haircuts. And
It won't take long.
I paid for
Yeah, I'll run down for myself. yeah.
Well, hey,
you know what? My wife's doing them too, along with Monica Rossman. They're both licensed cosmetologists. But you know what? I'll step in and help on you guys.
I was
Perfect.
actually thinking shoe shine.
shoe shine. There you go.
Right.
You know what? We never thought about that, Laura.
This area might be a lot more boot shine, but yeah, it'll be some shoe shine. So perfect. Well, thank you.
I'll bring some wax, and I've shined up a lot of boots in my military career, so I think I can go back to that. But
Perfect.
yeah, so military equipment, so or
Okay.
medical. But yeah,
Perfect.
there's going to be everything. I
Are
hope
there-
to see you guys there.
Yeah.
And, you know, just to show local support, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Sounds great.
So,
Are there any
thank you.
public questions regarding the presentation? And I'm sorry, I forgot to ask about the Willis PD feasibility study. I'm new at this, so bear with me. All right, moving on. Public comment and consent calendar forum. Is there any public comments tonight? Be on a presentation item or that I forgot to ask for?
I just want to come up to give my support for Brian. He did a really good job. Obviously, the numbers is a numbers game that you guys are going to have to obviously deal with. The 9-person department obviously is a good beginning. But and with the people being sick or hurt, I have 3 people out and it's detrimental to the sheriff's office. Me being working in the jail on graveyard shifts last minute because someone called in sick. So it is real, but the sheriff's office, we're here to make sure that whatever questions or concerns you may have, obviously we're dealing with it. We do give the numbers to Marty once a month for your crime stats. You can also get the Orleans if you want to compare. But I'm here, and my staff is here to make sure. And I wanted to also reach out and say that if you guys are really wanting to do this, we're here to help, and we will assist with field training for your new people to sign them off because we are certified. So if that any way can help out in with the short term to get your people trained appropriately to sign them off so that it's legal. The sheriff's office would be willing to do that with the Willows officer, Willows Beat. And I'm just hoping that you guys, you know, kind of ride our coattails to the best of your abilities to start this. And whatever you guys need, the sheriff's office is here to assist you guys. Thank you.
Perfect.
No, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sheriff.
very much.
All right, any other public comment? Thought I saw another hand. Just come on down.
I can state my name for the record.
Oh, yes, please state your name for the record and
Jason Grant, pastor at the Art Christian Center, owner of Brickyard Gym and longtime Glenn County resident. Just want to go ahead and come up before and spoke on behalf of the cannabis dispensary subject, and just wanted to reiterate, I really appreciated what the council did a number of years ago when they reached out, got a lot of public input, and came up with the ordinances that we originally had for that. It's been disappointing to see how what was built with public comment, with public action, and a lot of public involvement has been dismantled on the government side over the last several years from what was originally established. I missed the November meeting on this topic. One of the things that I'm afraid of is that as a community, once a cannabis dispensary comes in, right now we're limited to 2. Now the council will go ahead, you know, that's another thing that's standing in the way. Let's go ahead and dismantle that too. And constantly chip away at the
so
ordinances and the
can
different
I,
things that.
can I cut you off real quick? We are actually having a public hearing on the cannabis items.
Yes,
Sorry, so this is for comments not related to anything on the agenda item.
okay.
I'm sorry, like I said, I'm new, so I'm still figuring out when to step in and not step in.
Yeah,
so-
I don't come here often enough to know any different.
No, and that's fine. So when we get to those items in the public hearing section, which are coming up here shortly,
Sweet.
we'll have you come back up and
All right,
you can
great.
voice it then. All
I
right.
got a preview of things to come.
There you go. We got a preview of things to come.
Yes,
So
thank you.
awesome. Thank you. Okay. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Thank you. Forgot the word.
Lauren Still, thank you. Administrator of Glen Medical Center, congratulations for new and returning council members. I hope you have share my hope for this next year. And I'm not going to take up too much time because I want to come back and actually do a presentation, but the hospital has identified a huge gap in how we deliver care in the community.
Lauren,
sorry, I hate mics. But basically what we've been doing for the past years, partnership in the state of California has their CalAIM initiative, right, for enhanced care management. But that only goes for our partnership beneficiaries. It doesn't help any of our senior citizens on Medicare. And we are in a situation at the hospital where we have a number of social admissions that we're unable to move out, that we need advanced support from Health and Human Services, our TCAP partners, community health workers, that sort of thing. And I came across a model of delivering care a couple of years ago called a accountable community for health. And accountability is important to me, which is one of the reasons why I want to be here. And transparency is important to me. So what I've done this past week is work on a grant for the hospital to be able to bring in wraparound services with our community partners to do enhanced care management and case management for our Medicare beneficiaries as well. And I wanted to include the city council because you have your fire paramedics, which are part of our care delivery system, and I value their input. And I just wanted to come here and let you know that the hospital is working on this initiative, and that will be coming on for an agenda item pretty soon here to do an official presentation. I don't have an ask or anything at this point in time. When Chief Monk comes back, I'll definitely pick his brain about ways that we can be doing things better. And I just want to thank you for your time, and that's all I have right now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Lauren.
you.
All right. Okay, and next is our consent calendar items. 6A register approval, 6B minutes approval, and 6C new chlorine analyzer and rebuild existing influent pump.
I would move to approve the consent calendar items 6A, B, and C.
Second.
Got a first by Lori and a second by Vice Mayor. Any comments from the council? Any public comment? Okay.
Quick
All in,
question.
yes.
So there were some errors that were caught by, I believe,
Oh.
Councilmember Hanson and for the minutes, correct?
Yes, correct. Sorry,
So
there-
I just
there
wanted to
was some
suggest that it
amended-
be a friendly amendment with those prior requests for changes.
I would, and I wondered if I needed to do that since they were provided at the meeting, if they weren't just put out online already. But I would move to approve the consent calendar with the corrected minutes as provided to council.
And I will second that amendment.
First by Councilmember Pride and second by the Vice Mayor. Any other council comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion pass. Okay, next up, we have public hearing. All matters in this section of the agenda are formal public hearings and will be acted on individually. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes to discuss the item, and then we will be moving on. First up, we have item 7A summary of, we're skipping item 7A until our next meeting. First item will be 7B, second reading by title only of ordinance 760-2024 cannabis retail / dispensary businesses in central commercial zone. Any public comment? We will open public comment at 7:10. Now it's your turn. Yes.
And you were just getting there too. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, like I said, it just seems like there's been a slow dismantling of some of the original intent that was done when this topic first came up. And this feels like another dismantling of that. And I'm concerned that the trajectory that the council on is they're going to constantly soften the rules that govern this. This has an impact in the image of our county. It has an impact in the image of the area where it goes in. It has an impact in how people perceive Willows as a city. In the communities that I travel in, you know, if you ask someone, is there a difference between Chico and Orville? People will tell you that there is. Is there a feel with the difference between Chico and Orville? And people will tell you there is. I'm concerned that us pushing in this direction, there's going to be a difference between feel of Orland and Willows. That we're going to be known as something we don't want to be known as. That we're going to open up Willows as the place that has an image that is associated with this. And that's something that I wouldn't want our community to have, that kind of an image. Is this the kind of business that makes Willows a better place to live? Is this the kind of business that makes Willows a good place to raise children? Is this a kind of business that attracts young families? And we want to have young families in this area. Or is this the kind of business that people want to shy away from? That they don't want to bring their kids to this area. They want to find another place to live. Because those are the kinds of things that we're inviting into our community. And I just want to, you know, as we try to position ourselves as a place to be, let us realize that us pushing for this kind of business changes what kind of people want to be in this area. And I just want to caution the city council, don't continue to remove some of the safeguards that are put in place to try to attract a business that we may not, in the long run, want to have in our community. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on item 7B? Okay, we'll close public.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay, we'll close public comment at 7:12. Okay, next up is item 7C, second reading by title only of ordinance 761 what? Oh, do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, we need to vote on that.
Sorry.
Also, I just want to mention that you might want to have, I don't know if it interests the council, but Joe could certainly do a brief combined presentation on B and C if you want to do that. I mean, because you do have two new council members that are less familiar with this ordinance. So, but of course, that's the council's purview and your discretion.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be good, Joe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hey, no problem. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. So in doing kind of a brief overview of both items, they're both ordinances, and one seeks to open up allowing cannabis retail dispensary businesses within the central commercial zone, and the other opens up general commercial and light industrial zone. Both of these would be in accordance with the newly passed resolution that they be 600 feet in distance or more from a school. Both ordinances passed their first reading at the November 26, 2024 City Council meeting. A summary of the ordinance was published in the newspaper of general circulation on January 3rd, 2025, and a certified copy of the ordinance was posted in its entirety at the office of the city clerk on January 8th. This item came about, just a little brief background. We did previously have two cannabis dispensary businesses interested in siting in Willows in the combined districts. Both of those applicants ended up not moving forward. One made it fully through the application process due to costs of building in the undeveloped zones that they're currently allowed. So this kind of leads that there's minimally developed land within the current zone that dispensaries are allowed to operate. The current zoning designation that allow cannabis dispensary are the highway commercial and the combined zones of general commercial, light manufacturing, planned development, and general commercial and planned development. Some things that opening these new zones to be allowed for cannabis business dispensaries. There's a potential for increased revenue for the city. The revenue generated will generate significant sales tax revenue. We could add a sales tax ballot, an additional tax ballot for the people to vote on to put a specific tax on cannabis products that could be from 3% to 5% that are in addition to the sales tax that's generated already. A boost to local economy. If we open up these districts more in the downtown area, it could lead to higher foot traffic and neighboring business like restaurants, cafes, provide some more employment opportunities for people in our town, and increased visitors to the downtown area. Within your packet, you'll see a plethora of information regarding not only our own codes and ordinances, but also the state regulations and the requirements for all the safety and security requirements and age verification, all of that. And about all I'll say in addition to that is this is an application process that involves, it's a two-phase application process, and a conditional use permit is needed in both instances in order to get a license. And then the city council would make the final decision on awarding a license to an applicant. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Briefly, I'd just like to add, if I could, Mayor Hudson, that the later item around possibly establishing a council ad hoc committee to review applications is, of course, contingent upon whether or not these next two items pass by the council. I appreciate that there is likely a split council on where people stand tonight, the council on this these two particular agenda items. Of course, I don't know which way it'll go, but the idea of the ad hoc committee was to try to offer a bridge forward if it does pass that would provide a little bit more oversight and a little bit more council involvement. And I will touch on that further in that final item in tonight's agenda. Thank you.
I'll add one more thing to that too, just because we have the map up, just so you guys can get a visual. Sometimes the printouts don't come out as good as they should. So this would be the central commercial zone here, highlighted in green. These are 600-foot estimated setbacks from that zone itself. The general commercial zone is this pink color located up and down here, and then a little over on the east side. And the light industrial, light manufacturing zone is here. So this would be kind of your sphere of where things are allowed. As you can see, some of the downtown central commercial district is not allowed, does not allow cannabis business dispensaries due to its proximity to the Joyful Noise preschool. So just wanted to give an overview on that.
Okay, thank you. Any council questions for Joe or Marty?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any questions. I do have comments, and I can reserve those comments until we have discussion, but I do have comments.
Okay. No questions, council discussion, or, yeah, right?
Believe you just go around and take comments and or questions
Okay.
individually.
Councilmember Hanson, your comments?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like I say, I could either speak now or during a discussion if there is, as this is an action item upcoming, but I've been steadfastly opposed to, as colleagues know, and our two new members who were just recently elected may not be aware of this, but I was part of the council in 2017 and 2018 where the current ordinance was crafted. I'm proud of that ordinance. It's a solid ordinance. I've been opposed to the changes that have been made. Recently, I stated my opposition during the first reading of this ordinance. I'm steadfastly opposed. I haven't changed my mind. I agree wholeheartedly with Jason Grant's comments. Thank you very much for your comments, Jason. There were a number of comments, a number of citizens here at a previous meeting stating their opposition. The vast majority who were present opposed. A handful were in favor, but a minority at the time. But this is a solid ordinance that we have. I don't think it's a good community model to be opening the cannabis dispensary issue. Of course, we have a maximum of 2 allowed within the city limits, but I don't in any way agree that opening it up basically anywhere within the city is a good policy and a good direction to go. I firmly support and stand on our current ordinance as written. I just want to make that statement clear. I absolutely 100% opposed to these changes. So with that, my opinion has not changed. So Jason, I appreciate your comments and I agree with them. And that's all I had. I just wanted I know Rick and Evan know my comments. You've heard this before, so I'll stop there. And I just want to make sure that Lori and Matt understand my comments and where I'm coming from. So thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other council members?
I'll provide comments. I've been one of the participants in the audience that has also voiced some opposition to the changes to the cannabis ordinances. I understand some of the arguments for it: increased sales tax, increased revenue for the city, drawing highway visitors off the freeway to our downtown. But quite frankly, I want people to come downtown to come to our restaurants. I want people to come downtown to come to our stores. I want people to come downtown to enjoy the ambiance of Willows. I think if people choose to use cannabis, there's a million places they can get it. And I don't see them just coming off the freeway in Willows to go to a dispensary. I agree with Councilmember Hanson that I think the ordinance enacted in 2017 provided the opportunity for that in areas that are close to those highway visitors that may need to purchase some cannabis on their way down the freeway. If it's expensive for them to build, then the business may not be that viable. I mean, I keep hearing how it's such a wonderful business and it will raise all this money, but it's too expensive to build a building to put it in. Most of the people that I have spoken to, especially in the central commercial zone, have been adamantly opposed to it. Sadly, there are businesses that are currently consolidating locations, businesses that are closing, businesses that are tired of fighting to survive in this community. And the discussion of dispensaries being allowed in the central commercial has been a final straw for them. Personally, I'm not a big fan of cannabis, but I'm aligned with Councilmember Hanson. I am opposed to this direction that the city's proposing.
Councilmember Busby, anything to say or questions on this?
I think, to be a little bit of a contrarian, I think one thing in my research of all this is something that I have not heard or seen addressed is majority of the cannabis that comes into the city is coming via delivery service, right? So there's a number of apps that you can use, either from Williams, Chico, a handful of other. I unfortunately, while I understand completely, I think that the Pandora's box has already been opened, and at this point, it's coming into the community, and somebody else is benefiting from it. I think if we have a fair shot, we're not going to stop the perception or the kind of the negative, air around this topic. It's not going to change. It's still coming into the community, and if it is going to continue to come into the community in the volume that it is, we might as well be making the sales tax off of it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Thomas, anything to add?
Yes, I do. In the past, when the previous ordinance was created with the 1,000-foot setback from the schools, from the churches, et cetera, it basically approved the use of cannabis, but severely restricted the locations where it could go. So the purpose was we approved it, but yet there's really no place you can put it. So I think by removing the distance requirements, it actually created an environment where you could actually have that. Now, cannabis, if you're buying it to smoke, which is legal in California, but more importantly, I think there's other services or other products that are delivered, the oils and some other things that do help for aches and pains and some other things, which is herbal medicine, if you will. So I'm in support of these businesses. I've made it a point to go to various different locations in different towns. They're very clean, they're very neat, they're secure to get into, and I don't believe it creates an issue. It's not going to generate riffraff, if you will, to use the term, because those folks that are can't afford it, or they're growing it, or they're buying it. But the dispensary creates an environment where they could get it safely, not full of fentanyl and other issues. So I think if it saves one child from buying it and getting it, or one adult getting fentanyl in their marijuana because they wanted to smoke it, it's worth it. I also think that the use of the cannabis oil, I've seen it actually work with other people, and how it eliminates the pain. And I think the access to that would be important for our citizens. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you. I guess it's my turn, right? So
Never gets to go last.
So I've obviously been in support of this. And you and I have had conversations as well. Those who decide to abuse any substance will still abuse it. And those who decide to use it legally will still use it legally. I feel like by limiting this, what my perception of this is we are taking out the government overstepping their bounds by saying, you can do this, but you can't do that. We'll allow this business here, but we won't allow that business here. It's not about that they're smoking. It's about what they're smoking. That seems to be the problem. You could open up a cigarette store 2 blocks down, and that's going to be okay. That's already allowed within our current city laws. We can open up a liquor store just down the street from the school, and that's okay. But yet we're going to limit just one item that has been highly controversial. It is the newest, it is the new thing, right? It's right now it's getting out of its prohibition era is the best way I can think to put it, right? How alcohol went through that, it came out of its prohibition. It's coming out of that. It's still new to everyone. However, it's already here. It is here. We're not capitalizing on it because it is being delivered. People are going to other places and getting it. The idea of comparing Chico to Oroville, but Chico has dispensaries, Reading has dispensaries, and they're both growing cities, and they're both good cities to go visit, and they have a lot of things to go do outside of that. Shasta Lake is another, smaller town that's boomed, and one of the things that they have there are dispensaries, but it's not inhibiting their growth. It's not creating malice amongst the population. It's not bringing in the riffraff and things like that. I think what we're doing is we're giving the opportunity to those that do live here to have that option, and those that do live here and don't want that option, they still have the option not to go in there. But we're servicing our citizens that do partake in that substance use, and we're offering that service to them here. It is a way for us to increase our sales tax. It is an avenue that we have not touched on before, because it's been so limited. And I think that we are trying to both appease those that do not like the idea and the uses and the safety aspect of it, right? Not letting it be right next to our schools, but still allowing it to be ran as a business, which it is. It is a heavily regulated business. You go in, they're checking your IDs. You either are monitored by someone while you're doing your shopping, or you go up to a counter and you have to ask specifically for it. It's trying to like buy a behind the counter pharmaceutical. They're checking out the person that's buying these items. It's not just any Joe Blow that can go in there. In fact, I wish that they would do this more with other substances that are sold, such as alcohol and cigarettes, but it's not regulated this way. So I am in favor of it, because it is a legal substance for people to use. And I am not here to say, well, it's legal, but as a government entity, I'm not going to allow you to do that, because I don't want you to do that. It's legal in the state. It's allowed here. And for me personally, I'm a member that does not believe that the government should be stepping on my toes as to what I can and cannot do. And to me, that's exactly what the old bylaws were doing. They're stepping on the toes of saying it's legal, but we just don't want you to do it or you to have it here. And to me, that seems unfair and unequal to everybody that lives in our community. So with that, we will go to, I believe, a roll call vote is next.
Oh, you need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion. Sorry.
So I would move that the ordinance next in line be read by title only for item 7B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
This will be a roll call vote, correct, Marty?
Yes, that'd probably be a good idea.
Okay.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Mayor Hudson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Pride,
No.
Councilmember Busby.
Aye.
Measure passes. Ordinance passes. 3-2.
You were right.
Yeah.
4-1.
Mr. Mayor, if the vote is not unanimous, the entire ordinance must be read in full.
Okay. Can we get a motion reading the entire ordinance in full?
Or we just need to read it.
You just need to-
So is it the ordinance or the resolution?
The ordinance must be read in full unless the past vote was unanimous. That's why I voted aye for it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Just going by my understanding of
Based
Rosenberg's.
on this, it says it has to be read. Based on this, it says second reading the first motion. If this vote is not unanimous, otherwise the entire ordinance must be read in full.
Cheat sheet notes from, I guess, years ago. We didn't put them up there.
It's been here since I've been here.
That's good. Thank you.
I'm confused. I'm not gonna lie. So do we need to read the whole thing or did it pass the way it was? Okay. So
Those are from I'm pretty sure those are from a prior city clerk, which is actually common for clerks to put up certain guidelines so that council members remember occasionally when these things come up. However, it's been up there the entire time I've been here. It was prior to my joining the city, so I don't have much background or information on it.
okay. So do we have a motion to read it by title only? Do I need to
Well,
request
that's
a
what we
motion
just
then?
voted on. It passed 4-1.
Okay. So then we are
Waive it. Does there need to be a motion to waive it?
to waive the reading of the. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, since we've been using Rosenberg's Rules of Order for a number of years now, this council, thank you. This requirement may in fact be a Robert's Rules of Order requirement, and rather than a Rosenberg's. I haven't read that section of Rosenberg's for a long time, so I couldn't tell you.
No.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, we do.
Do we have consensus to waive the reading of the full title?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then motion passed 3-2?
4-1.
4-1.
Okay. Okay, so motion passed 4-1. Next item,
No, actually, then I would move that we approve the ordinance amendment 760-2024.
Seconded.
no, we just received
No.
the presentation together. So this is
Oh, I
for,
only made the motion on 7B, not 7B and C.
Yep.
Correct.
And I would just like to say, sorry to add more confusion, but the public hearing was open and closed, but I believe only for the first item.
Yes.
correct.
So you
Yeah.
would have to open and close it for the second.
Yep. And now I found my public hearing guidelines and procedures up here to follow to not mess it up this time. So thank you.
Sorry.
And I apologize. I'm used to sitting over there. Okay, so we will next item of order is item 7C, second
No,
reading.
actually, 7B still. Because the motion would be to approve the ordinance of the City Council of the City of Willows amending chapters 1855-030 CC Central Commercial District for the City of Willows Municipal Code, specifically to add section 18.55-030-20 to allow cannabis retail dispensary businesses in the Central Commercial District. All other text to remain unchanged. My motion.
Seconded.
We already-
Because
we've
we
already
hadn't
done
voted
that.
on approving the ordinance. We just approved the waiving of the,
Right.
so now we have to approve the ordinance.
Yes,
So we have a
Yes.
first and second now to approve the ordinance.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. We have a first and a second, and then that's a roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So now we need a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hanson,
Nay,
Mayor Hudson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Pride,
No.
Councilmember Busby.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed 3-2. Okay. Thank you. That actually cleared everything up as to what I was getting confused on.
I'm
Okay.
gonna do it all over again.
Now I got to do it all over again. Second time's a charm. Okay. Call the matter to order for the hearing as calendared and listed on the prepared agenda. Item 7C, second reading by title only of ordinance 761, 2024, cannabis retail / dispensary businesses in general, commercial, and light industrial zones. We already did receive the presentation. Next, we would inquire to,
Open the
Open the
public.
public
we will
hearing.
open this up to public hearing at 7:37. Yes. Please step up to the mic and state your name for the record.
Doug Ross, DOUGROSS. What I'd like to say is, what I really object to is that it seems like our country, shall we say, is going in a direction in which my perception is both, from reading the news, which I try to stay away from reading the news instead of writing it. Someone asked me the other day, for example, that, but I hadn't even heard about the fires in LA, and the person said, you don't read the news? And I said, I spend so much time researching and writing it that I don't have time to follow the news. So with that as a backdrop, I'm real concerned that our country is going in a direction where people are getting to feel that they can do anything they please. There's kind of a lawlessness afoot in not only in my view of larger scale of following the news or the disinformation or whatever you want to call it in today's international and national news and data market. It's not like in the 60s when I majored in journalism and, everything was much more clear than. It's just become, to me, a hassle to following anything anymore because the general public, if you will, feels it can run into a crowd and kill people, feels like it can, commit crimes and not have to be held responsible. What I'd say is that my readings about 3-5 years ago in the LA Times first, I believe, observed that the illegal cannabis market has outstripped the legal cannabis market. The illegal has made a joke out of the legal cannabis market. And in line with my attempts to articulate what I just said, I think there's kind of to me, there's a mooting of the question of whether cannabis should be appropriate in a town or a city or not appropriate, based on the fact that, to me, things have become such a rancid anarchy online and in person, and trying to interface with medical service providers, which I've found in the past few years has just gone to heck. So I have no position, but I would just like to place it in a context that, if as I contend that we're all being made chumps of, then I think that should be recognized in the context of a larger view than people coming off the freeway or traditional demographic predictions. Something new in my mind has to happen. I've gone to towns, I've been around Northern California most of my life, and frankly, towns that are dull with or without cannabis shops, and towns that are exciting are exciting with or without cannabis shops. And also, I think the general public kind of doesn't look at it like, well, I'm going to go to Lake Shasta and get pot, Lake Shasta City or whatever. I think, if I may conclude, that the perception of government agencies local, which is I cover, I do actually look into, do extensive readings, and when CPUC comes up, I'm more knowledgeable about public policy than I'd like to admit. And I think it supports my journalism major and my long trail of experience. But there's a big gap between what people who are in government, employed by government, or sit on government panels perceive and what the actuality is that's going on. I'm not recommending any RX for that positive dilemma, but I think it's something any local government body should take into consideration, is that they're badly out of step in several categories with the public mind. The public mind, to me, if I may be vernacular, is kind of a drag these days, and I don't like it, but there's nothing I can do about it. I could editorialize till kingdom come, but people could just make a paper airplane out of it. I'm not going to apologize for trying to articulate. I think it's a complex subject, and that's why I'm having trouble articulating it. But if I get in a couple of points, it says, I think the council and the Willows and Orland and all these places are living in a new world right now, but they've been kind of slow to adjust to what reality is beyond surveys and demographics and what we've always done. I'll conclude there. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Doug.
Doug.
Is there any further public comment? Got yours in? Okay. All right. Next, as there had been adequate opportunity for public to be heard, I close the hearing for further public comment at 7:44. Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Perfect. Any members of the board have any questions or comments regarding?
I'd like to comment.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify some of our discussion on the last item, when it talks about where, I think when we talk about, do we want to use in Willows or where do we want the use in Willows? And that's why we have zoning. That's why we have zoning districts. So we can say that a dispensary may be something that we would allow into the city of Willows, which we have based on our 2017, and that's for highway commercial and PDA areas. The question before us today is just, are we going to allow it somewhere else? So nowhere has the city ever said, we do not want it here. But we have been very conscious about saying, where do we want it? What zone do we want it in? Do we want it in relation to particular things such as churches and schools? So I think it's important to say, and it's just like any use. We don't want single family homes downtown. We don't allow a single family home in downtown Willows. That doesn't mean we don't want single family homes. We're just conscious of where we want it as we look at what our overall community looks like. There's a place for things and there's a place for not having things. And I'm only saying that now based on some of the discussion under our last item. So I believe there's a distinction between that. You know, a central commercial district is different than a general commercial district, is different than your highway commercial district. Nowhere have we ever talked about allowing cannabis in the entryway district. That's kind of interesting. That's Wood Street. Why would we want it in central commercial, but not even talk about allowing it in our entryway? So I just think it's something that we miss sometimes at this level when we're talking about these things. It's not about yes or no. We've already said yes as a community. What we found is our yes to where was a limiting factor for those businesses that might want to bring it to Willows because we don't have existing infrastructure in terms of buildings that make it easy to start the business. Well, that's true of any new business we're going to recruit, right? It might be difficult. So I just want to make that point. We're now talking about general commercial and light industrial zones, which I'm not sure if that's going to change my vote or not, but it is different. And so what we've really been talking about is not, do we want cannabis? We already said that in 2017, that yes, we do. All we're deciding now is where. What do we want our town to look like? How do we want it to be? So this one passes. We've already passed one. The next thing that we need to pay serious attention to is really what I think the city can do better at is, vetting what comes in, putting conditions on it, and then making sure that those conditions are followed, because that's where it breaks down. And I think that's where our public concerns come in sometimes. And not pointing fingers, we're a small staff, but I just wanted to really clarify, we have zoning districts for a reason, and that's all the way from single family homes to every kind of business imaginable. That's our planning function. Thank you.
If I
Thank
could
you,
add to
Councilmember
that,
Pride.
by our reduction from 1,000 to 600 feet, we actually open up the highway commercial, because with the church or the Walden Academy, it basically took out all of Humboldt Street for a good portion of it.
So there is more opportunity than
So
what we
there's
think.
more opportunity out there.
Thank you. Council members on my right side, any comments?
Oh, yeah, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Pride's comments precisely. I remain steadfastly opposed to these legislative amendments to the ordinance, the existing ordinance. I'm sure I'm on the minority side, but ditto my previous comments. And it took a lot to change my opinion in 2017 when we crafted this excellent ordinance, in my mind. A lot of work and effort went into this from the council at that time, and wasn't taken lightly in being in the enforcement business for my entire adult career. When marijuana was unlawful, I changed. I came around slowly and changed my mind. States' rights, right? The 10th Amendment Constitution, when California legalized marijuana usage to a certain extent. I'm opposed to. I don't use marijuana. Never have. Never will. Never tried it. Never inhaled. Never took a puff. So aside from the Clinton thing, never. Not only did I not take a puff, I just had to get a Clinton dig. So thank you. But anyway, I didn't do very well at either. But I came around. And I was, as you know, opposed to reducing the distance requirements, and the licensed daycares was my idea to throw into our former ordinance that has been changed. I was opposed to that. So again, we have a solid ordinance. I'm opposed. I'm opposed. I've said I don't know how many times. I'm going to stop saying it now. But I would encourage a no vote on this, or die for lack of a second. However, the previous legislative amendments were passed on a 3-2 vote. That's our democracy in our republic. That's the way it operates. I'm opposed, and I haven't changed my opinion on that. So there you go. I just had to say it. So now I feel better. Send me a bill for the therapy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You closed the public hearing.
I was gonna say we're closed to public hearing at this point.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
With that, those changes were already made, the reductions earlier, Mr. Grant, that's already been decided. Those reductions were made last year so licensed daycare centers don't apply anymore. Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Okay. It is a preschool too. It's a preschool and a daycare.
It's on
Yeah.
Plumas and Oak, or is it Oak? Is the other intersection? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would push into just allowing more. It would restrict the central commercial district more than is currently shown on that map.
Any other council comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would move to waive the second reading by title only of ordinance 71-2024, cannabis retail dispensary business in central, general commercial and light industrial zone.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to we have a first on the floor. We have a second
Second.
Waiving the read, yes.
and a
Yeah,
second.
Waiving the read, yeah.
Waiving the reading, yes. And is this still a roll call? This is not a roll call. vote.
Yes.
Oh, it is a roll call vote as well. Okay.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Mayor Hudson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Pride. Aye. Councilmember Busby.
Aye.
Okay, motion to read item 7C by title only passes 5-0. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would move an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Willows amending Chapter 1860-030 Central CG General Commercial District to the City of Willows Municipal Code, specifically to the amend Section 18.60.03011 to allow cannabis retail dispensary business in the general commercial zone, all other text to remain unchanged.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
First by Vice Mayor Thomas and seconded by Councilmember Busby. This will be another roll call vote.
Councilmember Busby,
Yay.
Councilmember Pride. No. Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hanson.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay. Next on our schedule here is item 8, discussion and action calendar. Discussion item 8A, City Hall ADA door upgrade project. Recommended action, authorize the city manager and her designee to approve an overhaul project budget of $178,944, including a 10% contingency. Execute a contract with Bilson Construction in the amount of $131,813 for project construction and a task order agreement with Coastland Engineering for $33,950 for construction management. This project is funded by the CDBG funding administrated by Glenn County. Joe, do you have more to give on that?
Nope, I'm gonna pass it off to my more capable counterpart here, Mr. John Wanger.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. As I'm going to summarize some of the items in the staff report, but basically back in 2021, the city applied for and received a grant through the county for a little over $353,000 for CDBG money associated with the Corona relief funding. And that money was intended to fund two projects. There were two projects that were applied for at the county. One was associated with replacing the main doors within City Hall to make them ADA compatible. The second was Jensen Park, which is the next item on the agenda, but I wanted to make clear that grant did cover both of those projects. So specifically with respect to this one, the plans and bid documents were put together. The bid documents do cover replacement of the rear door to City Hall, the front door to City Hall, and the main door into the library. And those doors are slated to be upgraded. The primary upgrade to those is the doors are going to be automated. It'll have a push button for a disabled person to push and the door will automatically open. So those will be now in compliance if this moves forward. That being said, the project was put out to bid, and on December 10th, we opened the bids, and one bid was received, but there were issues with that bid. The bid was from Bilson Construction. Two issues with it. They did not include a bid bond with their bid, which is required by the Public Contract Code. And then also, when examining their bid, they actually had 64% of the work was going to be performed by subcontractors. So technically, when you read through the Public Contract Code, that was a non-responsive bid. So considering that it's a non-responsive bid, there's also a section in the Public Contract Code that says if a city does not receive a formal or informal bid, the project may be performed by the employees of the public agency by force account or negotiated contract without further complying with this article, the Public Contract Code. So what that does is basically relieve us from having to go back through bids because we didn't receive a responsive bid. But we obviously did receive one bid. That bid was actually lower than the engineer's estimate. I believe the engineer's estimate was a little over 138,000, and this bid was for 131,000. So what staff is recommending in the staff report is that you do authorize the city manager to negotiate. Presumably, it's going to be with Bilson, and it would be for the bid amount that they submitted. And as long as they are amenable to holding that bid price, which my understanding is that they are, that we would move forward with negotiating the contract with Bilson for completing that work. With that, and it's also mentioned, this particular project is 100% funded through the CDBG grant. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Councilmember Busby, any questions? Councilmember Hanson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. No questions, just a comment. It's about time. We've been discussing this door issue for some time. I know the library doors are in terrible shape and are locked with a chain on the insides. And the front doors they look good and they're in decent shape and they work well, but the back doors are a travesty. I mean, how many times they've been tightened up? They're shot. They're worn out.
Right.
That whole unit's completely worn out. Not the doors, the unit itself. So yeah, it's about time. So, but anyway, and I know there's, it's a municipal project, and we have to follow the law, and it takes time, but it's about time. So that's good. It's time to move forward and get these doors secure. And I do appreciate the fact that be modern doors, and our previous discussion tonight, or presentation on possibly pursuing reestablishing a police department. These doors will be in line to be upgraded with additional security locks if need be, card locks and that sort of thing. That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, the one thing I will mention about that, I did discuss the rear door with the consultant that was here and presented the police department. The issue is, just so the council's aware, is although the front doors will be ADA compliant, the only parking spot to get into City Hall that is ADA compliant is actually in the rear. So if and when the police department were constructed in the rear of the building, we do have to have a through corridor that goes from the back doors into City Hall, because that will be the primary route if a disabled person takes advantage of the disabled parking spot in the rear of the building. They will have to get to the remainder of the building through that door, but that's all workable. It's just something I just wanted to point out to the council.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pride, anything to add?
No questions, thorough report. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Just one question. I think John's aware of it. I see the construction management inspection is higher for this particular job. Is that because we have to negotiate and we want to make sure that these guys are doing what they're supposed to?
No. So the issue with small jobs is it's very I mean, I usually budget when we do the capital improvement program, I usually try to budget on a basis about 15% of the construction cost goes towards construction management. The issue with this, and a lot of the construction management is driven by how many days of actual construction that we have to have an inspector on site looking at stuff. With this particular project, the difference between this and the next project that we're going to talk about, the next project, we have public works staff that is capable of doing some of the inspections. So we took advantage of that. With this project, it's not, the doors are not that way. It's more of almost like a building project than it is a public works project. We are doing part-time inspection. The nice thing is there are 3 projects that will be going on concurrently as long as both of these are done. One is the lift station project, which has already been approved, and that's already starting to be worked on. And then the other 2 would be this building as well as Jensen Park. But doing that provides for an economy of scale of doing part-time inspection. The problem is, particularly for the CDBG projects, we have to march through certain paperwork that CDBG requires. One of those is we are required to do employee interviews of the contractor staff and any subcontractor staff to ensure that they are being paid the prevailing wage as specified by the state. And it's a bigger deal, as well as file certain paperwork with CDBG. So the reason why this particular one is higher, first of all, the project's low cost, but it does have I believe it's a 55-day working schedule on this. But just the mere fact that we have to show up, and I believe our inspector, we've allocated 2 hours a day when they're actually constructing it. But the construction management time takes up almost as much as the inspection time adhering to stuff. So it drives me crazy because honestly, we realize that there's public monies being spent here, but at the same time, as I was explaining to Councilmember Thomas, the value of having inspectors here as well as construction managers working on it. A good example, which the council is not aware of, it didn't even come to the council schedule or to the council's attention, but with the paving project that was just done, at the very end of that project, the contractor in our estimation spent more than he had originally anticipated. So they filed a pre-claim against the city for $100,000 extra and tried to say that they did a bunch of work. Well, the paperwork that we had proved that in fact their crews were not working on what they said. Plus we had items in the bid specifications that we pointed out that they had to file a claim within a certain amount of days, which they didn't. Bottom line is that went on for about 2 or 3 months. And at the end of it, when they figured out that we were not a city that was going to roll over and pay them an extra $100,000, they dropped the claim. So that, granted that's a little bit of an extreme thing to present to you, but there is definitely value in making sure that the contractor is doing what is required in the bid documents. So
Thank you.
Oh,
you bet.
yeah, excellent, John. Thank you.
Perfect. Sorry, gotta get back into the right category of where my mind's working at. And then is this grant funding? I noticed that there's 3 different stages of this. Is this all coming in at one time, or is this the second of 3 payments? Did I read that incorrect when I was looking at the?
It's all one project. All 3 doors are going to be done. I mean, they may stage the doors doing them at different times, but it is all going to be done.
No, I meant the relief funding round 2 of 3 and 3. Is this 2 and 3 of the program funding that we've received?
It's the final round of the funding. So there was CV1 and then there was CV2-3. And
Okay.
CV2-3, I think, was originally made for small business loans, things of that nature. And then when those weren't expended, the state then took them back and relinquished them under the CDBG funding cycle to be spent on things that ADA categories and things of that nature. So it's kind of a recycling of coronavirus 2-3 funding, but we have all the funding. It's a reimbursement based
Okay.
grant. So we'll spend and then seek reimbursement, like John said, doing labor compliance and all of that good stuff.
All
along
that
with
stuff has to
it.
go
Yep.
through. Okay. Perfect. And it looks like we have a resolution. Do we have a motion to?
Mr. Mayor, move that the resolution titled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Willow, State of California, authorizing the city manager to negotiate directly with the contractor for the Civic Center ADA door upgrade project for not to exceed construction price of $131,813 and approve an overall budget for the project be adopted.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Councilmember Pride has a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same
Yes.
sign.
Do we
Sorry.
need a roll call?
No.
Motion passed 5-0. Okay, next item, item 8B, Jensen Park Improvement Project. I'm assuming that Mr. Wagner, you'll be speaking on this one as well.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Similar to what I just presented, this project is going to be mostly funded through the Community Development Block Grant, Coronavirus Fund Round 2 and 3. The project is proposing to extend sidewalks to a number of different areas within the park, which is going to be picnic areas, playground areas, and some gazebo areas that currently don't have sidewalks to those, as well as it will be doing some improvements to the accessible parking area to make sure that that is in compliance with current ADA standards. So with that, bid documents were put together. The project was put out to bid. 7 bids were actually received when the bids were opened, which was a much more robust showing than the prior project. The bids did range in price from $125,000 up to $217,000. The engineer's estimate on the project was $165,000. And the low bid was submitted by Rock Creek Construction. And Rock Creek, I don't know whether the council realizes, but they were the ones that just did that small sidewalk project for the city, and they did a good job at it. So we were happy to see that Rock Creek was successful in this. And we do appreciate participation by all the bidders. But we've gone through all the bid documents, found that everything is in compliance with the bid documents, and we are recommending awarding the project to Rock Creek Construction. I will mention that in the fiscal impacts, the overall recommended budget to approve is $158,690. Again, part-time inspections going to be done by the public works staff, and we'll be doing some supplementary inspection as well as the construction management on it. The funding for this, $108,000 out of the $158,000 is funded through the CDBG grant, but there is also park development impact fees that specifically have allocation for pathways within our parks. Staff felt that that was a very appropriate expenditure of those funds. So there's just under 50,000. It's 49,917 that's proposed using the park development impact fees. And again, those monies would be expended if the entire budget is expended, but if it is not fully expended, certainly the park development impact fees will be the fund where we don't draw as much money out of. So with
Okay.
that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Start down at this end. Councilmember Busby, any questions? Councilmember Hanson?
No, sir. Great project. Thank you, John.
Councilmember Pride?
No questions.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
None.
I do have one
Mhm.
comment on this. I was looking through the bid documents, and we did receive a bid from a local company
We did.
that was $16 more than the lowest bid.
Mhm.
So are we required to take the lowest bid?
Yes.
Or we are required to take
Yeah,
the lowest bid?
the public contract code dictates that we have to take the lowest responsible bid. And I will say, in my career, I think I've only seen one bid closer than that,
Yeah.
Okay.
which is pretty amazing. I mean, it was kind of a gasp when we were opening up.
It's a $17 difference is what it
Right.
was.
But we are
Um,
required through the public contract code to take the lowest responsible bid.
Lowest responsible bid. Okay.
I just want to add to that real quick that there are things, and we've talked about it before, I believe, in the municipal code that we can add that give a a percentage discount to a local contractor. I believe Glenn County has a 5% local contractor discount. So if somebody within the jurisdiction does submit a bid, they would receive, basically if their bid's $100,000, we'd take 5% off of that. They come in at 95, and then they would still get their full bid price, but when you're doing your bid comparison, you would take that percentage off. So in this case, any percentage probably would have made the difference. So those are things we can absolutely look at doing when we upgrade our Willows Municipal Code, is adding that percentage discount. But currently there is nothing there.
So we're looking into it. It's not currently in place right now.
The plan would be to, if the council desires to have a local contractor discount, normally the
Mhm.
maximum is about 5% that I've seen. So that's something we can do to put in the bid process to give a local bidder preference, basically.
Well, and
Okay.
I would just add, the council already approved, because we're in the middle of a municipal code update,
Mhm.
approved extending the contract with Prentice Long and allowing Harris to review it. But we're going to do that in the new fiscal year. And there's going to be a public meeting with the council and the planning commission to take a look at the code and give some clear direction about zoning. But certainly that at that time, we're going to allow a draft to be seen of the entire code, and anybody, including the council, can make a recommendation or give direction to staff to be sure to include that.
Okay. Perfect. It's just hard to see a local business that
It was
lives and
yes,
shops and does everything here in the town.
and
miss it by.
$15. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like John said, pretty unheard of.
So make a placemat note for that. Thank you.
Perfect. Do I have a motion to approve this?
I would make a motion that resolution of the City Council of the City of Willows, State of California, authorizing the city manager to sign a contract with Rock Creek Construction, Inc. for the Jensen Park Improvement Project and approve an overall budget for the project. Be approved.
Second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Councilmember Pride as the first and Councilmember Hanson as the second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passed 5-0. Perfect. Next on our agenda is item 8C, Cannabis Retail Business Application Ad Hoc Committee.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you, John.
Thank you, John. Drive
you,
safe.
John.
Safe.
Thank you.
This,
You ready?
yeah, sorry, I'm ready.
Okay. So this is not a requirement. It's not in the code. It's not in the ordinance or anything like that. But I did recognize that there was some different perspectives on the council related to the cannabis, the amendments to the cannabis ordinance. And because of that, I thought that it might be of interest to the council to consider a little bit more oversight than would normally be done operationally, and appoint a 2-person council ad hoc committee to, with the staff as a team, review the applications that would be coming in for the 2 licenses. Currently, our next steps that we're planning are to advertise now that this has been approved, and give a deadline for submission of applications for the 2 licenses, and be, competitive review process. There's quite a lengthy number of things that applicants have to submit, and then sit down after that deadline and review the applications. And I believe they have to come back to the council, Joe, for a full recommendation of the council, correct?
Correct. It's a
I believe that's
phase
how
one.
it's set up now, the ordinance.
Yep. It would be internal review of city manager for phases 1 and 2, then to planning commission for the conditional use permit, and then city council for final approval.
So those, if the council elected to establish this ad hoc committee and appoint 2 council members, they would be part of that initial review process and making a final recommendation to the council. I can tell you right now, Joe and I spoke about this earlier today. It looks pretty confidently there's at least 2 applications for the 2 licenses, and possibly 3. We would want to do an advertising process with a deadline to give other potential candidates a possibility of competing for the licenses. That's pretty standard, and then go from there. But I don't expect it to be an exhaustive number of applications for the 2 licenses. And that concludes the presentation and the recommendation, unless you have questions for me.
Perfect. Any questions or comments from the council?
None, Mr. Mayor.
I think it's a good idea to do it. I mean, I've reviewed sort of the process that goes through. There's a lot of steps involved. I think if we're going to have a two council members serving on an ad hoc, if that's the direction we go, I think it would be good to have one that was supportive and one that was not, simply to give the two different perspectives, to be really looking at it with different perspectives.
That would have been my thought too. We should have one of the nay votes participating in that review. Make sure that those concerns that they have would be properly addressed.
I agree. It sounds like Lori and Rick would be perfect for that.
It sounds like we got our ad hoc committee already set up and ready to go.
Hey, everybody agree? I'm sorry, Evan, that's your job.
You know, this is the second time this week the train's coming down the path,
There you go.
running me
go.
over.
And
Our work here is done. No.
I'd be happy to. Honestly, I worked with Element 7 when they were one of the first applicants. And so, you know, it wasn't that I was opposed to them. We were just trying to find a place for them, and that it didn't end up working. They were going to be out by Rumiano, and for a variety of reasons, they didn't work. So I'm somewhat knowledgeable about the process, and I'm interested in planning, you know, so.
Well, and just to add to that, because Vice Mayor Thomas, it's going to take me some time to get used to saying that. Vice Mayor Thomas brought up the kind of a question that went out to the council about, you know, how far is this ad hoc committee going and working on it? And I think to be careful so that it doesn't conflict with planning commission and council decisions, it really is a very limited time effort of reviewing applications and making a recommendation and then stepping away from the process after that. So I just wanted to make that clear. That's my recommendation. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with the city manager's take on that. To me, that would be 4 extra eyes with, you know, differing backgrounds and opinions, looking at the documents. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
With that mode of operation for the subcommittee.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to establish the ad hoc committee and appoint?
I was going to see if there's any other, you got any questions on this, Councilmember Busby?
No, I think Councilmember Pride's point about we've already said yes, but you know, hey, we're just talking about guardrails here. I think additional guardrails, because it is a contentious issue, are important, but also not so restrictive guardrails that it becomes anti-business, right?
Making sure they follow the process and it's all taken care of appropriately.
And they're financially viable for a change.
Yeah, so I agree with the idea of the ad hoc committee. And I was along the same train of thought as Councilmember Pride of one person that was for it, one person that was opposed to the changes that we had made. Whether whoever decides to be on that, we can still go that route.
I like the mayor being on that particular role.
I like the mayor trying to make his kids' basketball game still. So with that being said, yes, I am in favor of this. Also, with that being said, we did open up the districts, but one of the rules that I believe I read when I was going through this, and I can be corrected, is the owner of that building still has to approve that specific business being opened in there. I mean, it's required for them to actually have a contract stating that they are allowed to operate that style of business within that building.
Correct. Yeah. If they're
So-
leasing the building from the owner
Mhm.
needs to sign off that there is a step that involves, you.
So
you
they
need
might
to
want to
have it.
use the old US Bank, but
Yeah.
unless the owner of that building says yes,
That
they
sounds good.
got to
Correct.
find a different place.
And interestingly, the old Masonic Lodge, I was looking at the MLS today, and the Masonic Lodge building is up for lease, and the comments say that pending approval, you can use it for a cannabis dispensary.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Masons would roll over for that, wouldn't they?
yeah.
So do we want to?
I'd be one of those.
So do we need a
So do we
motion?
need to establish
This-
the ad hoc committee and then
this
vote
is- this
on
is a-
members?
This is an appointment, Mr. Mayor. Just an appointment.
We need to
We need to
establish.
establish, okay.
By consensus, you can do by consensus, or the mayor can appoint.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to force anybody to be on a
Do-
committee that they don't want to
You
be
can
on.
Vote to establish the ad hoc committee, though.
Okay. So can I get a motion to establish the ad hoc committee and then we'll, with two
I
committee
would,
members?
So
I would-
moved. Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, you go.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a first by Councilmember Hanson and a second by Councilmember Pride. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion pass 5-0. And now as far as appointing members, do we have consensus that Vice Mayor Thomas and Councilmember Pride are great advocates for that committee?
Oh, yeah.
So consents.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You may add that to your
Okay.
resume.
So we will have Vice Mayor Thomas and Councilmember Pride as our committee members on that ad hoc committee. All right. And that concludes our discussion and action calendar. Next up is comments and reports. Any council correspondence?
Mr. Mayor, I did receive an email from Lauren Still, who was presented today. And her effort is going to be seeking a letter of support from a variety of agencies involved in the health as well as perhaps the city. So just FYI that when we get more information, we might be asked to do something like that. And I think anything that does assist the management of our citizenry and their health care would be positive. So that's it for correspondence from me.
The only thing I received as far as correspondence is two Christmas cards, one from Paratransit and one from the Lamalfa family. So I don't know if that's correspondence or not, but it does have words on it. So, and pictures. Next, if there's no more correspondence, we'll go to city council comments and reports. Oh, yes,
Can I
sorry.
just quickly add, I just want to acknowledge for the record that I did get a letter from, which was already mentioned this evening, from Under Sheriff Goodwin, which was shared with the council regarding the police department presentation and has already been discussed and acknowledged this evening. So I don't think it needs to go any further than that, but I did want to acknowledge I did get that correspondence.
Perfect. Thank you. Council member comments and reports. Councilmember Busby, anything to report? Any comments, questions, concerns? Nothing. See the head shake. Nope, you're good. Okay.
Good.
Councilmember Hanson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along the line of correspondence, I never thought Christmas cards was correspondence, but it's a good idea. We received one of my last acts as mayor was received a Christmas card from Governor Newsom and his family. So there you go.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't get one of
Had to say it. That's the first time. Former governors have done it, however, anyway. Okay. Now, okay, next. All right. Reports. Yes, yesterday we had our monthly Glen Groundwater Authority board meeting. And they're all always chock full of a lot of information and long agendas. We had a very intriguing presentation on groundwater recharge services, and the board is continuing with our several recharge projects ongoing as we have done in the past with those same projects and possibly expanding. So initially, one of our consultants, Jeff Davids with Davids Engineering, and they're water engineers and they're very good at what they do. We had a demand management program presentation yesterday also. But since 1990 through 2024, the Colusa Subbasin, under the vast majority or the valley areas, basically of Glen and Colusa counties, has been basically overdrafting about 30,000 acre feet per year as a loss per year since 1990. So right now we're about the subbasin can withstand approximately 500 to 550,000 acre feet from groundwater pumping. We're about 200,000 as a subbasin acre feet over that amount. So that is not sustainable. So those are some very eye-opening numbers. So stay tuned, more to follow on that. We still have not heard from the Department of Water Resources on our groundwater sustainability plan resubmission yet. We're supposed to have a thumbs up or thumbs down report back on that from DWR by late January, but most likely maybe early to mid-February. The date keeps getting extended. We were under a very strict timeline to submit the GSP under an extreme amount of work and pressure doing so. However, DWR is at their they can take their dear sweet time on getting back to the groundwater sustainability agencies, which is interesting. So with that said, I'd just like to thank the Willows Public Works team for their extraordinary work this year. As always, their day in, day out, what they do. Obviously, they keep everything running from a logistic, internal, operational stance, but especially with leaf pickup this year, I know it was extremely trying, laborious. Thank God we had an early, very wet, rainy season. Hopefully that comes back, but it made the job just sloppy and mucky, as we know, with the leaf truck going down at the wrong time of year, and then with all the rain. Just kudos to the team for the hard work they've done, this hard, slow work, using the backhoe and the dump trucks to remove, the vast majority of the leaves. And now that we've finally got some nice weather, the last couple of days of leaf removal was much easier with the vacuum truck. But it looks like they pretty much have it licked, Joe, now, or they're getting very close.
Yep, they're getting close to wrapping it up. I think they called it off as of last Friday, but they're doing one more surprise pickup Thursday. So don't tell anybody that, but that'll be their final run around the city. So they are done at this
But
point.
excellent work to the team. I know it was a lot of effort this year and a lot of trouble and took a lot longer than usual. And why do we clear the leaves? Why does the city pick up the leaves? To keep the drains clear. That's the only reason.
Yeah, and they worked a lot of extra hours getting that slow process going and trying to keep up with things. So we do appreciate it.
So, and in the future, I just, please, citizens that park on leaf piles, don't do that. There's a reason that there are leaf piles. It's for pickup to keep the drains clear. So anyway, can't say that enough. So maybe Doug, you can help us out with that next year. So hint, hint. But anyway, with that, I just like to thank the entire team. And, John, our city engineer, John Wanger, our very capable, outstanding city engineer, just left. But thank God we have John. We really appreciate him and his professionalism. So keep up the good work, City Willows team. And we have a new city clerk, Price. Okay, I won't go there, but welcome aboard. Thank God you're here. Yes. You've joined a magnificent team here. So thank you very much for being here. Congratulations. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Pride?
On planning wise, we do have a vacancy on our planning commission. Holly Meyer turned in her resignation effective the first of the year. So thank you, Holly. We appreciate your service to the city through the planning commission. If anybody out there is interested in serving or we know anyone, I don't know if we're going to be putting anything out for the vacancy. Yep, we will. So that'll be coming. I was reached out to by Patty Hess with 3Corps. So 3Corps is kind of the keeper of the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is done through the Economic Development Administration. I served on the 3Corps board for probably 10 or 15 years back in the day. It's been a while since I've been on that board. So she invited me to come. They're having a SEDS meeting actually tomorrow morning in Chico. So she just asked me, since the city of Willows is no longer a member of the district, there's no Willows representation at those meetings. So she just asked if I wanted to attend as a citizen of Willows, just to kind of check in and see what they're doing. So I'm going to head over to Chico tomorrow, sit in on that meeting with the intent of coming back, having some conversations with city manager, just, about why we're not part of 3Corps anymore and, where we're going with economic development, stuff that Matt and I can talk about as we look at, how we want to move forward with economic development. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. She sent me a copy of the latest SED strategy document, which I've been taking a look at. That's really just a bi-county region of Economic Development Administration, which is federal, to look at how do we do projects collectively in the region. I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Thomas?
Yes, on January 3rd in the Valley Mirror, there was an article about a raise grant that would fix much needed Northeast Willows. It's pursuing improving the infrastructure, streets, et cetera, drainage. And while Northeast Willows lies in the county, it seems its improvement would be good for Willows as far as our access down the streets to fix the sewer pumps, et cetera, and the residents patronize our businesses in town, so I think it would be smart for the city to send a draft letter of support to the county for their effort to get that grant to improve our neighbors next door. They are close by. They end up paying a lot of things for and shopping in the city, so our support of an effort to improve their streets, I think, would be valuable. So I would recommend we do that. Beside that, yesterday was a LAFCO meeting. I had never seen LAFCO deny an annexation before, but they did deny an annexation of 5.7 acres into the city of Orland. I couldn't understand how they did that. It was a 3-2 vote. So I share that we don't have any annexations coming forth, but and we have a new executive director, Janet Wackerman, who served as a temporary part-time city clerk for us, and it was city clerk for the city of Orland for many, many years as a new executive director for the LAFCO board, started at this meeting. So more to come on LAFCOs. So I was just surprised by how the wind blew, but that's what it is. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you. For me, not a whole lot. Thank everyone for bearing with me on my first time sitting over here in this seat. I know it was a little bumpy, but it'll get better, I promise. I did have the city select committee meeting, which we got together and we read off who was sitting on which board for our shared committees that we share with Orland and the county. So pretty much the same as last year, except with the Glenn County Waste Management, which now has council members Busby and Pride listed on that one as a member and alternative. But that's all I have for tonight. So next up is our city manager report.
I'll make it short and sweet, but gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce to the City of Willows, Carleen Price as the city's next city clerk and assistant to the city manager. Carleen comes from the County of Glenn. She spent from 2015 to 17 in the county's Health and Human Services Office. And since 2017 until now, she has been working in the elections office. She's the elections expert over at the county. Well, she was until yesterday, the election experts. Yesterday was her first day here with the City Willows. So we give you a big shout out and welcome, Carleen. Really excited to have you here. Thank you.
Well done stealing another good one from the
Okay.
county of Glenn.
Yeah. Welcome to the team. Perfect. Anything else? Or was that it? That's all you had? One
That's it.
thing, huh? Perfect. Not just that's it. It's a great addition. Welcome. Sorry. Don't take that the wrong way. All right. With that being said, we will call this meeting adjourned at 8:34.
Very good.
Good job.
Good work. Good.
No, that was
That wasn't bad.